Mama, I chased you out of my own compound like a stray dog just to please a woman who left me with nothing. Now look at your son.
Listen, let me tell you a story about a man called Emeka Ozud. Emeka Ozud of Oguta town, the man who ran the 400 meters at the State Athletics Championship in 1991 and won. Not just won and lapped the boy in second place. They gave him a gold medal that day, and the whole of Oguta carried him on their shoulders from the stadium gate to his mother's compound. His mother, Mama Chidinma, tied her best wrapper and danced until her knees complained. She fed the entire street. She told anyone who stood still long enough that this boy, this son, this Emeka, was going to carry their name to places Oguta had never been. By the time I finish this story, you will sit quietly for a very long time, because this same Emeka, this same man whose gold medal Mama Chidinma kept in a glass case above the parlor door, knocked on his mother's door 30 years later in rags, knocked and was afraid she would not open it. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. In the flourishing town of Oguta, where the lake moves slow and silver in the early morning, and the smell of palm oil finds you before breakfast does, Emeka Ozudi grew up as his mother's entire heart. If Mama Chidinma was a woman who had poured everything she owned into one cup, Emeka was that cup. She hawked dried fish at the Oguta main market from 1974. She woke before the birds. She carried loads that bent other women double. She did it so Emeka could go to school with new sandals, so Emeka could eat before he ran, so Emeka could become. And he became. Oh, he became. By 1993, Emeka had a government job in Owerri, a pressed shirt for every day of the week, and a new wife named Adais, who had come with fine skin, fine English, and opinions about everything. Adais, who decided within 6 months of marriage that Oguta was too far, that Mama Chidinma visited too often, and that a man of Emeka's standing should not have his mother sleeping on a mat in the parlor when she came. Mama Chidinma was a woman who had built her son from nothing. She was still water, deep and patient, the kind of woman who prayed louder than she complained. Adais, if Mama Chidinma was still water, was the dry season wind, stripping everything it touched and calling it clean. And Emeka, who had once crossed the finish line ahead of every man in the state, stood at the center of his own compound in 1994 and chose the dry season wind. He was going to regret it in ways that would take 30 years to measure. It began with a promotion. In the January of 1994, Emeka's director at the Ministry of Works called him into an office that smelled of old files and ceiling fan oil and told him he was being considered for a senior administrative post in Lagos, more money, a government quarter in Surulere, a driver on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Emeka walked home that evening 3 inches taller than usual. Adais heard the news and did not sleep. She lay beside him making calculations the way some people pray, quietly, continuously, with her whole chest. Lagos meant distance from Oguta. Lagos meant a new circle of people who would not know where she came from or how she arrived. Lagos meant she could finally build the life she had been describing to Emeka since their wedding night. The next morning she brought it up the way she brought up everything she had already decided, calmly, with reasons arranged in order. She said Mama Chidinma could not come with them to Lagos. She said it with the same voice a person uses to discuss the weather. She said the quarters in Surulere were small. She said his mother was used to Oguta, to her market women, to her church. She said moving her would be the unkind thing, not the other way around. Emeka said nothing. My people, this is the part that will trouble you. not what Adaeze said. What Emeka did not say. He nodded. He finished his tea. He folded the newspaper and set it down on the stool beside the chair where his mother had sat every morning for the past 3 years, watching the compound wake up. 3 weeks later, the transfer letter arrived, and Emeka began to plan how to tell his mother she was no longer welcome in her son's life. He did not do it with shouting. That is the part that makes it worse. Emeka sat his mother down on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of Sunday where the compound was quiet and the neighbor's radio was playing a church broadcast from far away. He sat her down and he spoke to her the way a man speaks when he has rehearsed his words so many times they no longer feel like his own. He told her Lagos was expensive. He told her the quarters were small, just as Adaeze had instructed. He told her she would be more comfortable in Oguta, near her church, near her market women, near the things she knew. Mama Chidinma looked at her son for a long time without speaking. Then she asked him one question. Hadn't she asked if this was what he wanted or what he was being told to want? Emeka looked away. My people, the man could not hold his own mother's eyes. He said it was his decision. He said it with a straight face. He said it with the gold medal still sitting in its glass case above the door he was asking her to walk out of. Adaeze was in the bedroom. She did not come out, but Emeka could feel her listening, the way you feel a fire in the next room, by the change in the air. Mama Chidinma did not cry. She stood up slowly, the way old bodies negotiate with gravity, and she began to pack her things into the same raffia bag she had carried to Owerri 3 years before. She packed a Bible. She packed a wrapper. She packed the small framed photograph of Emeka at the finish line, the one from 1991, but the one where his arms were raised and his face was full of a future that had not yet learned to disappoint her. She left before sunset. Emeka did not walk her to the road. Lagos did not behave the way Adaeze had arranged it in her mind. The Surulere quarters were exactly as small as she had told Emeka they were, which meant the lie she had used to remove Mama Chidinma from the house now lived with them in every corner of it. There was no room to receive the kind of guests she had imagined. There was no garden. The driver only came on Tuesdays and Thursdays and spent the other days making Emeka feel guilty by simply existing. Adaeze redecorated twice in the first year. It did not help. She had wanted a life that looked a particular way from the outside. What she got was a government flat in a compound shared with 4 other civil servants and their loud children, and a borehole that ran dry every August. My people, watch what happened next. The promotion that was supposed to open doors introduced Emeka to a level of office politics he did not have the stomach for. Men who smiled at meetings and filed complaints against you before close of work. He began coming home tired in a way that sleep did not fix. Adaeze, who had married his ambition more than she had married him, found a tired man poor company. The quarrels started small, the way all serious things start small. A comment about money, a silence that lasted past dinner, a question about what exactly he was doing with himself that did not have a good answer. Emeka began thinking about his mother on the drive to work, not dramatically, the way you notice a missing tooth with your tongue, reaching for something that should be there and finding only the space where it was. He did not call her, not once in the first 2 years. He told himself she was fine. Oguta was her place. She was comfortable. He told himself this the way a man tells himself something he already knows is not true. The truth came not with thunder, but with a phone call on a Wednesday afternoon in 2001. It was Emeka's cousin Obina calling from Oguta on a borrowed phone with the kind of voice people use when they have been selected to deliver news nobody volunteered to carry. He told Emeka that Mama Chidinma had been sick since August, that she had been managing it quietly, the way she managed everything, without complaint and without calling her son, that the church women had been the ones bringing her food, that the woman who had hawked dried fish for 20 years to put new sandals on his feet had been eating whatever her neighbors could spare because she did not want to be a burden to the son who had told her with a straight face that his quarters were too small. Emeka sat down on the floor of his office. My people, not in a chair, on the floor. He drove to Oguta that same evening. He did not tell Adaeze where he was going until he was already on the road. What he found when he pushed open the door of his mother's house rearranged something permanent inside him. Mama Chidinma was lying on a narrow bed in a room that smelled of camphor and old wood. She had lost weight the way buildings lose paint, gradually and then all at once. The glass case above the parlor door was empty. But she had sold the gold medal sometime in 1999 to pay for medicine. She looked at him when he walked in, and she did not say, I told you. She did not say, where have you been? She did not say anything that would have been easier for him to carry. She simply opened her arms, and that, my people, is what broke him completely. Mama Chidinma recovered, slowly, the way rivers return after a dry season, quietly and without announcement. Emeka moved her to Lagos, not to Surulere. He rented her a separate flat 10 minutes away with a compound that had a garden and a borehole that did not fail in August. He visited every Sunday. He cooked for her sometimes badly, and she laughed at him for it. Adaeze did not last the year. She left the way she had arrived, with her opinions arranged in order and her mind already made up. Emeka did not chase her, and he sat in the small Surulere flat alone for the first time in 7 years and understood something that the athletics coaches of his youth had tried to tell him and that he had not been old enough to hear. They had told him that the race is never won at the finish line. It is won in the years of training before anyone is watching. His mother had been his training. She had been the ground beneath every step he ever took, and he had mistaken the applause of a woman who loved what he was becoming for something more important than the woman who had built him from nothing. My people, let me ask you something before I go. If someone carried you when you could not carry yourself, hawked fish in the rain so you could wear new sandals, danced in the street the day you won, brought and kept your medal in a glass case above their door even when you stopped deserving it, what do you owe that person? Think about it. Share this story with someone who needs to remember where they came from. And tell me in the comments, was Emeka's punishment enough? Or did he get off too easily? If you want part 2, like this video and subscribe so the next story finds you before life has to teach it to you the hard way.